Okay, so on this question, it's asking us to find the intercepts of y equals negative 2x, and then it says use the intercepts from the above graph it. Okay, well, how do we find intercepts? Well, to find an x-intercept, you plug in y0. So I'm going to take this equation and plug in y0. So what do I get? 0 equals minus 2x. Okay, so now, and then you solve for x. How do we solve that equation for x? Well, we're going to divide both sides, right, to get x alone by negative 2 there. Bonk. And so what is 0 divided by negative 2? Well, that's just 0, right? 0 divided by anything is just 0. You check it on your calculator. So we got x0. So we plugged in y0, and that led to x0. So that's 0, 0, right? X and y are both 0. Do you see what happened there? I plugged in y0, put a 0 in for y, so y is 0. When I solve for x by dividing by negative 2, x was also 0. So they're both 0. Now, if we do the second point, it's going to be the exact same thing. Because, you know, to find a y-intercept, remember, for intercepts, you always plug in the opposite letter as 0. So to find a y-intercept, you plug in x0. So now I would take the equation right here and plug in x0. So I'd get y equals minus 2 times 0, which is just 0. So there it is again, 0, 0, both x and y, right? I plugged in x0, got y0. So that's the same point twice, isn't it? It's right here. It's 0, 0. So it's the same exact point. In other words, this graph, this line that we're about to graph, goes through the origin, which means it hits both the vertical axis and the sideways axis, the x and the y axis, right in the same spot, right at the origin, right there. That is the intercept point for both axes. It goes right through the middle. So that's the x-intercept and the y-intercept. It intersects both axes right there. Okay. So, well, what do we do now? Well, how do we, because we got to find a second point, don't we? Got to have a second point. Let me bring the equation over here and I'll show you how we get our second point. Let me grab it here, bring it over here. Y equals minus 2x. So how are we going to get our second point? Well, remember that this number right here in the front is, remember the formula y equals mx plus b? That m is the slope. So the slope is minus 2. That is the slope. Whatever number is next to x when y is alone, when you have y alone in the equation, whatever number next to x is the slope. And what do you do for slope? You put it over 1, and that's rise over run, right? If it's not already a fraction, put it over 1 so that it becomes a fraction. We haven't changed anything, right? Putting over 1 doesn't change the value. Negative 2 divided by 1 is still negative 2. And now we can do rise and run. What do I mean rise and run? I mean from this point, go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, boom. There's your second dot. And now we just connect the two dots. And we got our graph. Oh, here, I should do a little better line than that. Try again. There we go. And there's our line. So again, how do we find that second point? We looked at the number next to x. That is always the slope. When you have an equation with y alone, y equals mx plus b, we don't have any b out here. The m, the number next to x, is slope. You put, if it's not a fraction, put it over 1. Rise over run. That means from this dot, go down 2 and over 1. Because I did a rise of negative 2 and I did a run of 1. So I went down 2 over 1 to get the next point. And there we go. We've graphed it.